Hi everyone and welcome to this Fan Art Friday video. In this video I'm going to work on a drawing of Star-Lord, and I recently worked on a drawing of Baby Groot. The support on that video was amazing and it made me really happy to see that so many of you enjoyed it. And a bunch of you requested to see some more Guardians of the Galaxy character drawings, so I thought it was about time I worked on a drawing of Star-Lord. I couldn't believe that I hadn't worked on a drawing of Star-Lord before. Such an awesome character, and he has a really cool mask. As you can see, after working on the sketch, it was time to work on the pen outlines. And for those outlines I used a Pigma Micron 05. I used this to add outer edges around the character and to add the thicker outlines between all of the metal plating on the mask. And when it came to adding the finer lines, I wanted to use a Copic Multiliner SP 0.03mm. Much finer, which meant that I was able to add some of the scratchy details around the mask and to add some of the finer details like the threading on the screws on the side of the mask and those kind of details. It was important for me to try and change up the line thickness on a drawing like this so that I can focus on where to place the shading later on. There's something that I really enjoy about working on technical drawings, like the working on the finer details of this mask in this one, and in previous drawings, maybe from even a couple of years ago with the Assassin's Creed drawings, where I spent a lot of extra time working on the finer details. I was talking to my friend about this recently, where I find that every now and then I get this craving to work on some finer details and some more technical drawings. It's almost like a therapeutic thing. I don't know if any of you feel like that. Let me know in the comments below. It's just sometimes really nice to just focus in on more details in a drawing. I even found that with the previous Ice Phoenix drawing recently. Just spending that little bit of extra time on some smaller details, it can be really fun. Once the outlines were completed, it was time to work on the colouring, and for the colouring of this drawing I used Copic Markers, starting off by working on the golden brassy colour of the mask. For this I added the first layer of colouring with a brick beige, and then over the top of that, to add some extra shading in the places where the metal plates kind of overlap, I was using a sand marker. For the majority of the other metal parts of this mask I was using Cool Grey 3 and 5, and also using a Cool Grey 7 to add shading and show where each part overlaps. After that, to add highlights, I was using a white Prismacolor pencil and my Uni-Ball Signo Broad white ink pen, using them to add some highlights to the underside of each part and to show that kind of reflective surface. For the red colouring of his eyes I used a crimson marker, using the white Prismacolor pencil as well to add some highlights around this area. And later on in the drawing I went back to the area as well to add a glow to the eyes with a carmine red Prismacolor pencil. I used the same colouring method for all of the metal plates and the bolts around the mask, so for the golden areas I was using the brick beige and the sand markers, and then for the rest of the metal plates I was using a base layer of Cool Grey 5, and then for the outer edges I was using a Cool Grey 3 to show that kind of faded, weathered effect around the outer edges of each plate. And then after that it was just about using the white Prismacolor pencil and the Uni-Ball highlighter pen to show up some scratches on the surface, and just trying to make the mask look like it had been worn and it had been damaged by all of the fights that the Star-Lord's been in. It was just a really fun process actually, just spending a bit of extra time trying to make the helmet look like it had been a little bit battle worn and just a bit scratched up. At the moment I'm really enjoying using the Uni-Ball highlighter pen, not just as a way of adding highlights, but as a way of adding little details to the drawing. I feel like it can work really well as long as I don't use it too much. Moving on from that, for the colouring of the skin tones of his neck, I used a mixture of pinkish white, pale grape and light grape, and added some shading to that area with the Cool Grey markers. And then for the colouring of his jacket, I added a base layer of colour with a cadmium red, over the top of that adding shading with a cardinal red, and then adding some Cool Grey 5 over the top of it to phase that colour into the shaded areas and kind of fade it upwards towards some brighter colour on the top of his shoulder. I used a light walnut and a champagne marker to add the colouring to the brown strap on his shoulder, and to add some shading to the underside of this area I used a dark bark marker. Moving on from that, for the colouring of his hair, I started with a base layer of colouring with a champagne marker, just to get an idea of the way the hair was flowing. Over the top of that I blended a maroon marker, making sure to leave lots of highlighted sections, and then lastly for the hair I used the dark bark marker, adding lots of shading towards the lower part of the hair and making sure to leave lots of highlights towards the top, using the dark bark to kind of define the highlighted sections. Lastly, I added a sky with the ice blue marker and added some clouds with the pale heath and a pale blue-grey. In front of that, I added a rock formation with the champagne marker, and even further in front of that, I added another rock formation by using a darker brown, that being the maroon marker. Over the top of all this, I added some highlights with the white Prismacolor pencil and the highlighter pen. As a final touch, I added some particle effects with the highlighter pen, and also used it to add an outline going around Star-Lord. And after that, the drawing was completed. Overall, it took over 5 hours to complete. I think that was purely down to the fact that I tried to add extra details to the drawing. Spending a bit of extra time on the technical details of the drawing was honestly really fun to me, and I was kind of craving working on something like that. I really hope you enjoyed watching, and please let me know what you think of this drawing in the comments below. If you enjoy videos like this, then make sure to subscribe, and any likes or shares are hugely appreciated, and they genuinely help the channel out so much. If you want to follow my progress and keep up to date with everything I'm working on, then be sure to check out the links in the description box below to check out my Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And once again, thank you so much for the support on the channel, and thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you all soon.